Hi, welcome to Hot Topics Live, the show, the podcast. I'm Kia Baker. I am the creator and host of the Female Veterans Podcast and Woman Warrior Stories for the Veterans Channel. I am also a success coach at London Real Academy or DeFi Academy, if you're seeing all that stuff around these days. So today I have a guest, of course, and it's just me. You may notice I don't have a co host with me. And sometimes it's like that. So it's my girlfriend. She's here, and I'm really excited to hang out with her and talk to her. Now, this woman is incredible, and she's so smart, and she is just everything. So I can't wait to bring her on. And we're going to talk about women in STEM. We're going to talk about global Greek influence. We're going to talk about everything she's going on because we haven't seen each other in like a year and a half. The whole pandemic happened and everything. And so we're going to catch up and you get to be a part of that. So, and maybe learn some really cool stuff along the way. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my girl. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Okay. She is so very intelligent, and she has this podcast called Global Greek Influence, which is how we met at London Real Academy. I'm so blessed to meet such incredible people through my work with London Real. And this podcast is all about looking at areas that define today's world, like politics or science or technology or academia, psychology, and history. And what her podcast does is it targets, or she interviews Greek people from around the globe, and she gets their viewpoints and their perspectives. And we see the influence that is had historically by Greek people from the dawn of time, because we all know that that's what's been going on. So, and we're going to learn more and more about it from her, and find out everything that she's been working on. Hi, Angeline. Thanks for tuning in, honey. I appreciate you. It's so nice to see that you're watching. I'm looking forward to having you as a guest on the show. So we have to organize that. So let me tell you a little bit more about Giota. She is an engineer. She has studied a lot in the UK. She's a speaker. She does lectures. She also teaches people. She is very heavily involved in STEM, and we are going to find out everything that she knows and what it's like to be a woman in STEM, because it's a growing field, but there's still not enough. Okay, there's still not enough. So we're going to hear all of these amazing perspectives from her, and find out everything that she knows, why she got involved, what she's doing now, and we're just going to catch up. So without further ado, I'm going to bring this lovely lady on, and you can see she is as beautiful as she is intelligent.
Hello, Kia. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the lovely
Hi.
introduction. We had a little bit of a catch up before you started, and we spoke about how we met. We recalled a little bit of our journey, our common journey in London Real, of how unaware I was at that time of what podcasting was. I actually, before I actually started the London Real Academy, I didn't even know that podcasts existed. I even haven't heard of a single episode of a podcast. And it was a great journey for me. I learned a lot, primarily for myself, of what matters to me. As you said, yes, I have the Global Greek Influence podcast because my initial idea was to connect with Greeks around the globe, but actually to see their experiences, their inputs, their contributions in the fields of technology, engineering, and science. Most people perceive scientists and engineers as those people who work alone in a lab or do lectures, but very little is seen by the society in terms of how politics and policies And the society itself influences what we do, because we cannot really do anything that is not needed. In a sense, we serve what the world needs at a specific time, or based on a programmed plan for the next 5-10 years. And of course, our research has to be supported financially. So this means we always have to target collaborations, international collaborations, that will bring different experts from various fields and solve real problems, and bring this money from the industry or from governments in order to do our job. So the Global Greek Influence podcast started in that perspective, and I had the opportunity to meet great people in their fields. You mentioned about the contributions of the Global Greeks. The truth is that another thing we don't realize is that we create history every day, every single one of us. And yes, I know, I think I lost a little bit of the connection. So we build history, we create history every day. And these Greeks come from Greece, wherever they live, all over the world. So it's also about the synergy of their perspective, their culture, how they interact with the environment in which they work, in the societies they live. And it's this give and take relationship that we have as people of this world, not only through our fields, not through our work, but all that our work represents, which in a sense are the values of a personality and values of the person who brings this science or politics, and how these impact societies, but also as we interact through our through what we represent nationally and internationally. In a sense, we are shaping the present and the future, right? So podcasting is a very not just useful, but an impactful tool to bring out messages from people who do not have always the opportunity to speak to a broader audience.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was the same way, believe it or not. I did not have any inclination to podcast before I started taking courses at London Real Academy. It was not on my radar. I think I listened to one podcast from time to time. That was the Jordan Harbinger show. Everybody knows that. It's the only podcast I ever listened to because he's amazing. And I would just binge that every now and again, but it wasn't really on my radar or something that I would do until I took the speaking course at London Real Academy. And then I was like, well, I knew that I wanted to create awareness surrounding military stories and the women who serve. Right. I wanted to share those stories because there's a culture of silence surrounding nobody knows what happens to women in the military. And a lot of veterans don't really talk about their experiences because they feel like the civilian population won't really understand it. So for me, it was really about being able to share those stories and shed a light. And I thought we'll take this speaking course and then I'll do speeches. Well, I do speeches now, but before that happened, I realized the way for people to really connect with me and get to know me would be through my podcast. And that's how it happened. So just as I was finishing the course, I was like, okay, I'm going to start this podcast. Hi, Kaula. And just go for it, kind of along the lines of what you were doing, and to meet people, to connect with other female veterans, as well as to learn from other people and learn from their experiences and share what they have to bring to the table to the world, right? And a lot of these stories are really inspiring as well. And from there, once I started coaching at London Real, I discovered this beautiful live stream and thought, okay, well, I want to talk to, I'm so in love with interviewing and talking to people. I want to talk to more people than just veterans. And I want to see what everyone's doing and thinking and feeling and what inspires them and what their stories are. And so here we are. And now I have the privilege and pleasure of finding out yours.
It's been a journey for many of us throughout, not just throughout our lives, but during the pandemic. I'm not quite sure what experiences you had since the pandemic started, but I don't know. I see all these changes in people's perceptions, or maybe they already had those perceptions, but because they feel under pressure at current times, it's they feel that they cannot really hide. So I could not really hide from what I wanted. I had a few things in mind for over 2-3 years now. I said to myself that if I was not going to progress in my career as I thought I would, then that what I'm going to do is that I'm going to see if there are other areas I could feel more creative. So it's been over 6 months now that I quit academia. I have been in the academia for over 10 years. The reason I did was because I saw that the academia started to change over the past decade, and things got really stressful during the past year. And I always thought this would have been a great opportunity to redefine academia, to make it more agile, flexible, progressive, to look into what the future holds for the academia. That was the point that I said to myself that I had to start something new. And I had to go back and revisit my values, see what was and has always been important to me. And that was to give opportunities, real opportunities to people to make the best of themselves and make the most out of their talents. As you said in the introduction of today's show, not that many things have been done for women in STEM. I was looking into, because yesterday the Nobel Prizes have been awarded. And one could see that from 1901 until today, only 58 women have been awarded with the Nobel Prize in different areas, not just in science and engineering, but even in life sciences, in politics, and so on. Everyone speaks about equality or equity. I'm quite entertained when people use these terms. I mean, what's the difference between equality and equity? Because equity does not only refer to the two, to men and women, or whoever defines him or herself as a man and a woman. Equity is completely different. There's definitely going to be a big issue in equity around the globe in the next 10 years. I see it coming. It's not just the climate change. It's everything. Now, when it comes to equality, there's definitely been perceptions that people carry as a personal choice because the society allows it. You know what? Sometimes I always had this this saying that if I would have walked in a room as a middle-aged man, I would have been taken not more seriously, but definitely my ideas would sound more innovative and meaningful. So I started to think, what can I do to really help? Because there are not really mentoring schemes in the academia worldwide. There are some there are mentors and some mentoring programs in many universities, but are not really run by the academics themselves. And in a sense, it's mostly about career advice. What I'm mostly interested in to see, to allow a young woman or a young man to identify themselves, what their talents are, and what they really want to do in research. Because these days, having a PhD does not really guarantee you an academic career. So you have to start thinking of your options, what you really want to do based on what is meaningful to you, based on what you're good at, and how you think that you're going to do something that will really have a meaning to you, and of course that will give you a professional future. So that's how I came up with the idea of mentoring PhDs in STEM, not just women in STEM. I'm involved as a mentor in the LeanIn, which is a large platform and organization, a global organization, which offers free mentorship to women. So I have a mentee through the LeanIn Leeds, who is a PhD student. And I'm also the cycle leader, because you can have cycles, in a sense, a peer, a team that are mainly peers at different stages of their career. In a sense, it's like a team mentoring, which is also a very different and a very interesting aspect in mentoring. Now, people might think, I don't know, maybe your audience might think, okay, yes, but what is mentoring? Mentoring, in a sense, aims to give scope, give purpose, and give confidence, and create a plan with actions. And based on these actions, you're going to have results as a proof of the way one paves for his or her career. So all these things happen at the same time as the podcast, which is a great way to communicate what one does, to come in contact with people of adjacent areas to engineering, science, and technology. For example, tomorrow I'm going to have an interview with a professor from the Berlin School of Business and Innovation, who has proposed a global degree. This episode is going to come not this Sunday, the following Sunday, to the Global Quick Influence podcast, and I'm really interested in finding out what this global degree means to him, and what the digital cosmos really means to him. And it's very interesting because this person started from politics, from studying politics, negotiations, and risk management. And I'm really excited to speak to him, because I really think we need global degrees, not just universities that are only bound to a geographical region. And I really want to see what the main aims and objectives are, and what these global degree targets, and what the benefits are going to be. Of course, we all know that education is quite costly in most parts of the world. So it's not affordable to most. In many countries, for both men and women. In other countries, women are disadvantaged because of the society and the policies that are dominant in that region. So there are so many things that have to be set right. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, many people got this as an opportunity not to change their ways in the best way possible.
Sorry, my kid was playing, so I muted myself. Okay, so I love the idea. He was like right outside the door playing with like Nerf guns. Anyway, so I love the idea of a global degree. That's amazing. I think my undergrad degree, I studied at an intercontinental university, so I think I am considered to have this degree in the UK as well as the United States. But that doesn't happen everywhere, right? So I could have done all this 8 years of studying like I did to get my master's degrees and go to another country and it means nothing. And that happens, you see that a lot when people come to the United States. They're like a doctor in Costa Rica, but they come here and their degree doesn't mean anything. And so it's really difficult. Even when I left the military, I worked in the pharmacy as like a pharmacist when I was young. But even leaving the military and coming out into the civilian sector, that education didn't mean anything. So it's just interesting, the concept of a global degree and how that could benefit and change the world in such a positive way. I'll be interested in hearing that episode, I think, myself. And but I have a question for you. So you have spent all these years in academia and you've moved now into mentoring and helping other people with PhDs, you know. But what led you down this path to begin with? Like, how did you decide that I'm going to do all this education and I'm going to like, you had to start somewhere with an idea. What was that? What was the beginning of this story?
The beginning of the story started when I was 5 years old and was for the first time the Star Trek series, the original series.
Really?
This is started. I know, I mean, back even at those times, which are not, I'm not that old, by the way, as the Star Trek original series, I mean, um, it was very uncommon for a little girl to be inspired by space traveling. And I was at the same time a practical person. I started to think, okay, how can this happen in reality, to travel into space for such lengthy times and sustain life on board and actually make these people breathe oxygen and to eat food and travel for such a long time. And then I started to look into the fields that could potentially, based on the technology we had, to such advancements. And I saw that chemical engineers were not only builders of big constructions like plants around the globe. And I mean, we designed the plants for the pharmaceutical industry, for the paint industry, the steel industry, the energy industry, anything that really has chemistry and biochemistry in large scale. This is where you meet a chemical engineer, because in a sense we take the lab scale chemistry and we can study lab scale chemistry and the materials around them, the reaction systems and so on, and bring them to large scale. So this seemed like the best path I had to follow. Of course, I always had this backup plan to become an archaeologist, because I also like the Indiana Jones movies. I really like the adventure, the discovery. So anything that would involve adventure and discovery, I thought that that was what I had to do. During my study years in high school and even at university, I realized that I had to be disciplined in my time, in how I organized everything, and also disciplined in my thoughts, because science can only be objective, it cannot be subjective. If something is not working, it's not going to work based on what we know, based on the theories and axioms we have at hand. Of course, nobody can predict if things will change in the next 20, 30, 50 years. So I also knew that science is not lying. And one of the things I hate in life are lies, especially lies from people. And to, I don't know, especially some people really like to give false hopes. And I just wanted to give to people realistic hopes, to have realistic expectations. So we're talking about values of honesty, objectivity, discipline, and of tangible expectations and results. And matched very well with my characters, and everything this discipline represents matched very well with my character. I always thought I wanted to go to the industry. I worked for the industry before I did my PhD, and because I was working at the same time as a research associate at a technological institution in Greece. I realized that I really liked research, so I decided to go back to research and do a PhD. During my PhD years, I started to prepare to become a lecturer by doing the first degree of the Higher Education Academy to become an associate fellow. So before finishing my PhD, I became an associate fellow of the Higher Education Academy. I started to apply for research fellowship jobs. And then one day I saw this lecturing position at the University of Ulster in Northern Ireland. Um, uh, Even though I didn't have my PhD at that time, but in the job description, it was clearly stated that even if one was at the stage of submitting their PhD, they could for the job. I did, and I got the job. I got tenured within 3 years. I stayed there for 6.5 years, then moved to the University of Bradford in the chemical engineering department. I asked to be tenured within a year's time as I worked in the UK academia before. They accepted that. So I left the academia while I was tenured. And I did that again because some things were not clicking. It didn't feel right. I was not feeling well with what I had in mind and with the way things evolved. I realized that life is too precious to not to risk, but it's too precious not to try. And I'm not really afraid or scared of making shifts in my life. And I thought that that was the right time to make that shift.
Wow. That's incredible. So all your life working towards this goal and working in academia, and then you just say, you know what? This doesn't feel right for me anymore. And you just take the risk, you take the leap and get out of your comfort zone and go into something new. That's really inspiring, actually, to just not be afraid and say that, life is too precious, to not try to be happier, for be more fulfilled.
My life's goal was not to be in the academia. My life's goal has always been knowledge. I'm a
Beautiful.
knowledge junkie. I like to explore, to search, to research, to find
Mm,
new things, not just about the world around me, but also for myself. I don't think I will stop learning until the end.
me
And
either,
this,
girl.
I love it. I think that it keeps the mind young. It keeps you young, not to feel bored. I wouldn't like to say that. Yes, my life is boring right now. I don't want anything to be boring, and I constantly look around for new opportunities. And research gives me this sense of excitement to find something that has not been noticed before, or that just to make a little twist in something and you get something new. And this is incredible. Um, because, I mean, why are we here in life? Just to breathe air and go on holidays and travel, or whine about global warming? And don't let me get started with the people who complain about global warming and climate change, yet they might order, let's say, from China, a product that is for free, and they only pay for the shipping costs. And nobody really thinks about the carbon footprint or what the
Mm.
working conditions are for these people who work for a product that comes to you for free and you only pay for the shipping fees. Um, in any case, there are so many things I really want to do, and sometimes I'm thinking I'm out of time. I want to do more, and I want to do more. And this is when discipline comes in, and take a step back, say to myself, you know what, you have to focus on these three, four things, finish with them, and then move on. Because I'm always like this. I think I will always have this child curiosity of discovering new things and finding new things, like kids when they play and whenever they see a new toy, they run towards it and forget about their old toys. Well, it's something like that.
I feel like I identify with so much of that. Like I'm a lifelong learner. I loved research. It was my favorite thing about graduate school was all the research that was required. I probably could have been very happy as a researcher. I really feel that. And I love probably that you got involved on this path by watching Star Trek because not that I do, the original Star Trek is my favorite. I haven't seen them all, but I have seen that the original series, and I do love it because I like old TV shows. Just weird like that. But I loved Doctor Who growing up, and it's very similar in the concept of exploration and getting new understandings and very in outer space and timelines and all of those things. So I grew up on that. I probably have seen every single episode of Doctor Who. So yes, I am coming out as a Doctor Who nerd right now. So I totally get that and how you have that curiosity and that zest for knowledge that will remain with you your entire life, because I feel the same way. I am a lifelong learner. I love to learn new things. I love to try new things, and I love to explore. And as I'm getting older, I'm getting more and more fearless in my pursuit of exploring and trying and understanding of new things and concepts. So I really find that amazing about you. And I just want to know more. So everything that you're doing now, everything that you're doing now with mentoring and everything like that, when you made that decision to leave academia, what was the first thing you did that led you into this path?
Well, I really liked as after finishing my graduate degree, I returned to Greece and I worked for the industry. And at the same time, I was a research associate at a technological institution where I was teaching. And I really liked also the contact with young people and the students. It felt like an ongoing dialogue with future generations, in a sense, even though in science and engineering you mostly teach a very specific curriculum, yet communication was very important. And I always felt great that I could contribute towards next generations. It's going to be a lie for most scientists. They simply say that they just do a job for the sake of doing a job. This is just a lie. It's not a legacy. It's about leaving something behind that is meaningful. I don't know how other people manage to do that while having families. I don't have a family, at least not yet. And the way I see it, I don't think I will. But well, generally speaking, it's about contributing to something that is new and contribute to what the future is going to be like. So these were the main reasons, and the fact that I wanted to acquire more and more new knowledge, because even when one teaches, it's not as simple as going into the classroom or into a lecture theater and start talking about everything that you have to deliver in terms of content. It's how you deliver it. There are specific methods, and mentoring is a completely different story. It's different to coaching. It's different to academic advising. For example, you've been a coach. You said in your introduction that you're a coach at London Real. From my experience with you as a coach at London Real, I wouldn't call you a coach, I would call you a mentor, because you facilitated the process. You were never saying that, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? You wouldn't really give guidance and directions, which is absolutely necessary in successful mentoring. So, and you did it in a very nice way, and I really liked the way you did your work at London Real. We had some hard times. You made it easier for us. It's very important for PhDs, well, for all PhDs, not just for PhDs in STEM, but I'm working with PhDs in STEM, to have this feeling of being supported while not being guided to create their own path, but to feel support all the way. And to learn from that, remember that process, and apply it in the future. Whenever they have to make different choices, they can recall that process and the steps of that process, which is the most important thing. In life, we do not just learn through experiences in our daily lives. We do not just learn knowledge. And actually, learning is a process, and acquiring knowledge is also a process. So we have to find our own ways of how to do this work for us. Nobody can really tell you what to do after your PhD. It's better to find it yourself. But there are facilitating methods like mentoring that can create that environment for a PhD candidate or one who has finished his PhD to plan a career during their PhDs at their own pace and time, based on what they find fascinating, based on what they really want to do, where they see their contributions are going to be, and create a portfolio of things to showcase. Because we most commonly listen to graduates saying, I'm looking for a job, but everyone is asking if I have any experience in that job. How am I supposed to have any experience? I was studying, I'm like 21 years old. How could I have such an experience? So through the mentoring for PhDs in STEM, this is the plan, to have some action, some outcomes through the mentoring program that one can showcase and say, yes, I have an experience in negotiations. I have experience in team building. I have that experience that is going to be useful to me to follow a career path after my PhD. So one can also go through the things that are most important to them, and then they will start seeing the connecting dots between these things that are really important to them. Because we tend to forget what is important to us. We tend to see ourselves through the projections of other people, of our peers, of our academic supervisors, of the society, of what people expect from us. But it doesn't mean that the path or they see for ourselves, or what they see us doing is really what we should do. This is not really for us. I remember nobody really thought that in my family, nobody really suggested I should do my PhD. It was all my own decision. It was my decision to go there in the academia, and it was my decision to see that it didn't serve me any longer based on what I wanted to do. And now, yes, I had to sit back and think what I really want to do. Education is very important to me. I see that the society is changing now, it's going to change in the future, and I'm sure that there are going to be significant changes in the structures of education and the academia. The academia and its structures as we have them now have been determined in the past century during our Industrial Revolution. Now we're heading in a different direction, and the world is more connected than ever, even though the world is not living to the same standards. And we have to, at some point, bridge all these differentiations, all these differences within a society, globally, regionally, because it's not just about politics, it's also about what this globe has to offer to us. What's our population now? We're 8 billion people, right? We all have access, more or less, to information. We can see how people live in Russia, how people live in Namibia, how people live in Kenya, how people live in South Africa, in Argentina, in Mexico, and so on. So we start seeing what people 100 years ago couldn't see, and we see how we live. And then each one of us, through our unique personalities and characters, we have these different ideas of how the world is going to be, and where we must have access to. So definitely food, water, and energy are going to be the determinants of our future, including education. If people have access to information, they want to have also access to education. If they don't have access to education, they might start undermining the value of education, the value of technology, the value of science, the value of politics, simply because many people think that even politics are inaccessible. They're not accessible by most, but we tend to forget as citizens that yes, it's our job to determine politics, and in one way or another, we influence politics. I remember the not last week's episode, the week before then. I spoke to a PhD student of religions in the late antiquity from the University of Liverpool in the UK. And we talked about what happened in the late Roman Empire and the early Byzantine Empire. And one might think, yes, who cares now? I mean, why should I know about these things? The reason was because that was a changing world when Christianity started to expand. And the Roman emperors had to adopt to what the empire really wanted. So we can learn from these shifts of what are the priorities of the world, how these transitions are made. Because we think, yes, it was the Roman Empire. We had the Roman emperors. They took all the decisions. No, they did not took all the decisions. They took their decisions based on what the people wanted, because they wanted to have a peaceful society. And that's the aim of most politicians. They want to have a peaceful society. So people demand more food, then the politicians have to ensure they have more food. If people want more education, and this is going to become a pressing matter for that society, then there has to be a solution.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I have a couple of questions for you before we wrap up. And my first question for you, as kind of related to what you were just saying, when you're talking about the Roman Empire shifting into the Byzantine, right? And a shifting world. And we're seeing right now a lot of shifts happening. We're seeing the emergence of decentralized currency and digital currency. This is huge. And I know as a scientist, I'm sure you have a lot of opinions about everything that's happening in the world, which is why I'm glad I have you here. And but my first question is going to be sort of like, we've just gone through this pandemic, or we're still in it actually. It's still happening around us. And it reminds me of, sort of, with the amount of deaths and people dying, the plague, right? And at the end of the plague, the world shifted and went sort of into the Renaissance period. Do you think that that's what will happen after this? We bring this to a conclusion.
Firstly, even though I'm an engineer and a researcher, I have no idea what digital currency means. Okay, that's one of the things that
We're not.
I cannot have an opinion simply because I don't know the details of it. I know very basic things about it. Um, Now, about the plague, we also had an episode at the Global Greek Influence podcast at the beginning of last year. And I spoke with, again, Marios Koutsoukos, who is the PhD candidate um, of the religions of the late antiquity. Um, by the way, he's also a science fiction author. He writes lyrics for heavy metal bands. He's amazing, and he's very knowledgeable, especially when it comes to history. He loves history.
Me
So
too.
we had an episode last year where we talked about pandemics as written in literature. Um, and that was the episode of I cannot recall its title. I'm sorry right now. Now, if I go back to your question about reliving a renaissance, um, things are more complicated now, and this is my personal opinion. I cannot allow this to myself as a scientist, as an engineer, and as a researcher, right? To become this fortune teller, I cannot be that.
Right.
Um, but we have to say that we have more global players than in previous periods of time. We see reshuffling in global politics, and it's also the direction between these global players that will determine if we are going to be allowed for a renaissance. The energy issue is pressing, especially in Europe. There is a great fear that we're going to have the worst year of an energy crisis in terms of prices, in terms of energy prices, because many countries heavily rely on natural gas. Um, so I wouldn't say personally that I'm that optimistic. We might have a renaissance as it was written in history through for all areas of our life, for science and engineering and technology and literature and the arts. Um, but I'm hoping that we are going to be there soon. Not in the next 2 or 3 years, but hopefully things will settle after the pandemic and we will have the opportunity to build towards something better.
Mm, I love that perspective. Even though you're not a fortune teller, you're a scientist. I'm gonna go with what you what your vibe is with there. I would like to see that as well. And my next question for you is sort of more about the pandemic And as a scientist, there's a lot of debate back and forth about vaccines and all of these things, but I'm interested to hear your perspective.
Well, it might seem like a cliche, but I totally support vaccinations.
Mm.
I think that it's illogical to say that these are new vaccines that they have to prove themselves. Both major vaccines, that are the mRNA vaccines and um, the types of AstraZeneca, and this is not, of course, an advertisement, and the Johnson and Johnson vaccine. Their platforms, their technologies are well known. I mean, the especially the mRNA vaccines have been developed since the 70s. They just adapt them for the new virus, and they did it quickly because yes, we have stronger technology and heavier means to speed things up than at the beginning of the 20th century with the flu pandemic, right?
Mm. Right.
Uh, I mean, even today, our hygiene is better. We have better sewage systems. We have better healthcare. So we can respond quicker. It shouldn't have taken us 20 years to have vaccines. So, in that sense, yes, the vaccines are our way forward because vaccines prepare yourself to create the antibodies if you get infected. Many people say, yes, I can make, I'm not going to make the vaccine. I'm not going to take the vaccine. I'm going to do PCRs. Yes, but a PCR or a rapid test are conclusive. You already had it and your body was unprepared. And then, even if we get medicine, there is going to be damage to your organs because you were not prepared to produce the antibodies. So medicine cures, but medicine might not be able to revert your organs to the primary state. Getting a PCR tells you if you're positive or negative to the virus. It doesn't protect you. It gives you some information. If you have been infected, nobody can promise me that if I was infected without the vaccine, that my body could prepare the antibodies, could produce the antibodies successfully and quickly enough so that I would not be seriously ill.
Mm.
And also, we have to remember that because of the vaccines, we have longer life expectancy. We should not forget that back in the 20th century, when we didn't have vaccines for many illnesses for children, how many children died? They didn't even manage to become adults. And now we think, yes, we have to get our children vaccinated because we want to see them grow. And also we have to keep in mind that because this is a new virus, and of course this is to my understanding as a researcher without being a medical doctor, and it's funny how many people suggest that they're doctors, but they're chiropractors or they're dietitians, but still they say that I'm a doctor. Well, I'm not a doctor. But what I understand also is that since we have a virus that researchers and scientists study every single day to find out how it mutates, what the new mutations are, and so on, still we don't have evidence what the long-term impact is to our bodies if we get infected for a period of 10 years. So I would say to parents to be very careful of exposing their children unnecessarily without any measures to the virus because nobody can predict now what the effects of the continuous exposure to the virus might be if one gets exposed for over 10 years. We will have this information in a decade.
Wow. I never thought of it that way. That is really important information. What would you say to people when they're like, "Oh, well, even you can still get it even if you have the vaccine. So I'm just not going
Yes,
to get
this is
it."
true. This is
It
true.
is true.
Yes, of course it's true. It's like the flu, right? Even if one had the flu vaccine, they could still get the flu. But their body has the memory, if you get the vaccine, to produce the antibodies and do it at an instant, right? Whereas if you're exposed without being previously vaccinated, you have to see if and when your body is going to produce antibodies. And if your body is late to do that, then you might get seriously ill because the virus reproduces itself in your body. In a sense, you don't have a defense mechanism. So what the vaccines do are to prepare your body before you get infected to produce the necessary antibodies. And of course, I want to
Yes.
be prepared. I don't want to risk it, right?
Right. Right. Well, for me, it was an important. I am typically. I have been in the past very hesitant to get vaccines because of. I acquired some illnesses while serving in the military, and I didn't know how I got them. They came after. Being vaccinated by a bunch of things. As you know, we get vaccinated by a lot of stuff in the military. And so I developed several issues after vaccination. So I've been also, and I've interviewed people who have had some vaccines, specifically for anthrax, who served in the military, who got sick from that. So that information made me always very hesitant. But for this, I listened to a lecture by Dr. Larry Brilliant, and he made it really clear for me. And so I made the decision, even nervous. And actually, if you watch old episodes of Hot Topics Live, you can see the whole transition because we were live during the entire pandemic, and you could see everything happening in real time, essentially, as we were so nervous for the pandemic. When we started to chill out a little bit, when we got a routine going to keep ourselves and our family safe, and then the determination to, that whether we weren't going to get the vaccine or we were both really, my former co-host Gloria and I, we were very nervous about getting it. And then eventually I decided to get it, and she eventually decided to get it, I think. But I have more co-hosts now, and they are uh, all different, and everyone seems to have a different opinion. And even last week, we had a guest on who is completely against it and thought I was bananas for getting the vaccine. And so it's an interesting perspective, because from one week, I can have someone who's like, I will give you all the facts. She is not a doctor, by the way. She's a beautiful singer and entrepreneur, but she's not a doctor. But she has studied a lot of medical things. And so she was very adamant about this, and she was like, I'll send you information and everything like that. And for me, I was like, listen, the choice has been made. And I still have people say to me all the time, like, don't get vaccinated. I'm like, why? I have done, I, like you, love research. So there are lots of scholarly articles and medical research that you can, scientific evidence that you can find even online very easily, to research mRNA vaccines and the information. So for me, what I found through my research supported my decision. Okay, so I just thought, since I had a scientist here, I'd love to get your perspective for those who watch this show, either live or in the replay as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And I know it's really late by you, and I really appreciate your time. And we are just about at 1 hour. So I have just one more question for you before we wrap up for today. Now, I know that you have a sort of a business that you created where you are helping people. You take just a few people on, and I wanted to hear about that and find out how can we be cool enough to be in your group?
Well, this is something new. It's about having in mentoring PhDs in STEM. This means that these PhD applicants or candidates or doctorates, those who have already acquired their PhD, They can be from all over the globe. This is why it's going to be online. I'm going to create some webinars through Eventbrite to welcome all the people who would like to listen to more about them. I'm going to announce the Eventbrite tickets on my LinkedIn profile. I hope this is going to happen within the next 2 weeks. I only aim to take 5 people.
5.
Only
Wow.
5. The reason is because mentoring is a serious job. No single person could take on more than 5, and I want them to be a mix of people who are looking for a PhD right now to help them land their dream PhD,
Aww.
people who already do their PhD and plan what they want to do within the next 2 or 3 years or within the next year before finishing their PhD, and also doctorates who find themselves after finishing the PhD of not being sure what they want to do and help them out. So that's the plan.
I love that. That's amazing. And so, I mean, I guess if you have your PhD or you're trying to get your PhD and you want to be a part of this, you have to go find Giota on LinkedIn. Honey, what is your LinkedIn so I can tell everybody what it is? How can we find you on LinkedIn?
I'm sorry?
How can we find you on LinkedIn?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn with my full name, which is Giota Pimenidou. So you can find me on LinkedIn with my full name, and you can follow me and see the announcements for the Eventbrite tickets for the free webinars to find out more about the scheme I'm offering.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to put your LinkedIn on here really quick. Hold on. I hope it's hard to type with these nails. Okay, so I'm trying to do it quickly. All right, let's see. Did I get it right? If I spelled your name wrong, I'm sorry.
Well, it's just after the N. It's an A. It's not an I. That's
Okay, so let's fix it. So because if people want to join, I want after the N on Panagiota.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll fix it really quick. I mean, we're live. We do what we want. So I want to make sure people join for you. And there we go. Yay! So go to LinkedIn. And if you're an aspiring PhD, if you have a PhD, try to get in on this group because I know it's going to be spectacular. It sounds awesome. And there you go. That's my gift to you. A better future with Giota. And I want to say thank you so much for being my guest today. It has been amazing to see you again and connect with you and just chat with you and find out why. It's been my burning question. How did she get into this field? And now I know it was Star Trek. Rock on. And you're just really amazing and incredible. And it's amazing to see women working in STEM and creating an example for other women. Because if we don't see that it's possible, then we don't think we can. So by you being a scientist and out there and showing that it can be done and you can be successful, it's setting an example for women around the world to get out of their comfort zone or to try something new or to really go for something they're really interested in, because they can see that it's possible. And so for that, I am so grateful to you and appreciative of you for all the women around the world who want to get involved in STEM. So,
well,
yeah.
our lives are to actually see and try to make our dreams come true. I would like to thank you, Kia, for hosting me. It was great fun, and I hope I will speak to you soon.
I hope so too. And so what's going to happen now is I will put you in the green room back where you were when we started. And if you can stick around, I will come and say a proper goodbye to you once I wrap the show in another couple of minutes. And if you can't, I will totally understand. I know it's really late and I'm so appreciative of your time. And absolutely loved hanging out with you and getting to see you again. So
Thank you,
thank
Tia.
you.
I will be waiting because, yes, I would like to say a proper goodbye to you. Thanks so much.
It's been a pleasure, hun. I'll see you in a minute. Well, that was awesome. I just love her. Isn't she smart? Isn't she talented? Like she had a lot of really good information that she passed. I really love that part about the vaccine because obviously I'm biased. I have the vaccine and I think it's necessary. I'm not going to throw shade who doesn't feel that it's their thing. I'm not going to force anyone or judge you or call you any names because I'm just not like that. You're both driving, Gloria. Too. Gloria, I will catch up with you after the show shortly. So hopefully you'll be done driving. I'd love to catch up with you. And thanks for tuning in, George. You know, I love having your energy around. So love it. And everyone who posted comments and had amazing things to say during the course of this episode, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your love and support. As always, you know, I love you big time. And if you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Hit that little notification bell so you know when we come live. If you are watching on Facebook, then please follow the Hot Topics Live Facebook page. We have so many episodes and I'm putting them on YouTube, so that people can see them there too. I know I've been hearing it's kind of hard to find me for some reason if you just look for Hot Topics or Hot Topics Live. So try putting in my name, Kia, Kia, put in Hot Topics Live, Kia, and you should be able to find it that way, or at least one of the episodes, and then you can find our where to subscribe and all of that good stuff. So try doing that, and then you'll find my YouTube channel. And there's so many episodes about so many different things, all different topics. There's sure to be something that you will love on there. I'm certain of that. And if there is a topic you want me to talk about, I have access to amazing people, as you could see from Giota, all around the world. And I will reach out to someone and bring them on the show. I have a lot of really amazing guests lined up for the rest of October. So come on this journey with me. Stay tuned and keep watching. And so you can follow me on Instagram at Creativity, at Hot Topics the Podcast, and at the Female Veterans Podcast. And you can listen to this show as a podcast too. Uploading episodes all the time, trying to catch up. But there are some episodes out there already, so you can listen to those and keep up with the show. And again, I want to say thank you for watching and spending this time with me. If you've made it this far, you're part of the Soul Tribe. So just go ahead and subscribe or follow if you're on Facebook, and come follow me at Creativity, at Hot Topics the Podcast, and at the Female Veterans Podcast on Instagram. I'm really active there. So if you want to get a hold of me, it is better to send me a direct message there than to send me a friend request on Facebook. So go follow me on Instagram and send me a message if you want to connect with me. And with that being said, that's a wrap for today. I will see you next week with another amazing episode. Bye and have a great week.